Welcome back. Today, we've got a truly thrilling explainer lined up for you, covering the historic 2025 Spanish Grand Prix at the legendary Circuito de Jerez. This race wasn't just another weekend on the calendar. It was a total masterclass in extreme machine management, underdog resilience, and quite frankly, a monumental shift in the entire championship narrative. So, if you love dissecting high-stakes race strategies and watching history being rewritten right in front of your eyes, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive right into this because the central conflict of this entire race weekend is absolutely fascinating. Going into Jerry's, the story was all about the sheer, overwhelming force of the Ducati machines. But then, a massive plot twist. We got an absolute shock performance from Fabio Quartararo on the Yamaha. So the core question really became, could this underdog Japanese manufacturer actually hold off the relentless European powerhouse on one of the most demanding tracks on Earth? Section 1, Turbulent Qualifying Results. Yamaha strikes back. To really understand how we got to Sunday's epic showdown, we got to look at Saturday first. Jerez is famous for soaring track temperatures that absolutely punish both the tires and the machines. But in those grueling conditions, just look at this blistering lap time, 1 minute 35.610 seconds. That secured Fabio Quartararo his first pole position since 2022. It was a massive, massive statement. By putting that Monster 20 Yamaha right at the very front, Quartararo broke Ducati's ironclad monopoly on pole positions. He proved that the YZR-M1 can still carve up a blazing hot track when it's absolutely dialed in. But as we all know, securing pole is one thing, actually keeping it is a totally different story. Quartararo is sitting there at number 1, but immediately behind him, a literal sea of hungry Ducati GP24 and GP25 machines. You've got Marc Marquez, Francesco Bagnaia, Alex Marquez, and Franco Morbidelli, all within roughly 0.2 of a second. Quartararo was completely surrounded. Quickly, before we hit Sunday, we obviously had the Saturday sprint race, and it was chaotic. Marc Marquez actually managed to snatch the sprint victory on his Ducati GP25, holding off his brother Alex, who took second. That Marquez 1-2 finish in the sprint was a very loud warning shot to Quartararo and the rest of the grid. The Ducatis were clearly dialed in, which set the stage perfectly for an incredibly dramatic main event. All right, Section 2, main race, start to finish, the Battle of Jerez. With over 220,000 screaming fans packing the circuit to create this absolutely electric atmosphere, let's move to the race developments and see how this builds across the 25 laps. For the first 10 laps, Quartararo rode brilliantly. He defended that lead with everything he had against the Ducati swarm. But right as the race crossed the halfway point, tire management became absolutely critical. Between laps 11 and 20, Alex Marquez on the Gresini Ducati started this relentless charge forward, utilizing his grip beautifully. Finally, in the closing 5 laps, Alex made his decisive move, snagging the lead and aggressively holding off the chasing pack to the very end. Now, while that brutal battle for the lead was raging at the front, there was a phenomenal underdog story unfolding just a bit further back. Trackhouse Aprilia's Io Gura had a pretty disastrous qualifying, starting way down in 15th position. But throughout those grueling 25 laps, he steadily picked his way through the field, crossing the finish line in a highly impressive 8th place. Ogura himself mentioned that despite the rough start, being able to fight closely with the frontrunners in those final laps made it a really positive, forward-looking race for him. But in stark contrast to Ogura's spectacular rise, the sprint race winner Marc Marquez found himself in a really unexpected struggle during the main event. Despite starting right there on the front row, Marc just couldn't maintain the blistering pace. He ultimately fell back to finish in 12th place, over 20 seconds behind the race leader. It just goes to show how incredibly fast fortunes can change in the Premier class when track conditions shift even slightly. Moving on to Section 3, Dramatic Results and Historic Feat. A new Marquez rises. So the climax of this race really comes down to one wild realization. With Marc fading, his younger brother Alex sees the ultimate prize, crossing the line to the deafening roar of the Spanish crowd to secure his maiden Premier Class victory. The dynamic between the brothers added such a fascinating layer here. Reflecting on the chaotic weekend where his brother had faced a crash earlier on, Alex literally stated, "I saw Marc crash and said, 'Today is your day.'" That specific moment, knowing the door was wide open and that he had the machine underneath him to do it, ignited the exact push Alex needed to conquer Jerez. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the final timesheet. Yes, Alex Marquez takes the win, but look at these margins. Fabio Quartararo on the Yamaha finished second, just 1.561 seconds behind. And right on his tail, defending champion Francesco Bagnaia in third, just 0.6 seconds behind Quartararo. After 25 punishing laps, the top three were separated by barely 2 seconds. That is just top-tier, razor-thin, competitive racing right there. We also have to highlight what this second-place finish means for Fabio Quartararo and Yamaha. This wasn't just a good race. It was Yamaha's first podium in 2 full years. Let that sink in. In an era completely dominated by European manufacturers, Quartararo proved that the Japanese manufacturers can still fight at the absolute highest level. It was a massive morale boost, and honestly, a total testament to his unbelievable skill in riding the wheels off that M1.
Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just huge for Yamaha. This single race effectively rewrote the MotoGP history books on multiple fronts. Check this out. We had Alex Marquez's first Premier Class win. It also marked the first time in history that 2 brothers won a Grand Prix race in the exact same season. On top of that, Alex's victory was the 200th Premier Class win for a Spanish rider. And if that wasn't enough for you, this win meant Ducati tied Honda's legendary all-time record of a 22-race win streak. Literally historic from top to bottom.
Which brings us to Section 4, latest points ranking, the big picture. So what does this all mean for the big picture? Let's zoom out a bit. The momentum generated right here in Spain created a ripple effect that ultimately defined the entire 2025 championship narrative. Fast forward to the end of the year, and this is what your final 2025 championship standings look like. Marc Marquez, completely recovering from his struggles at Jerez, went on an absolute tear to secure his 9th world title. But right behind him, locking down second place in the championship, is his brother, Alex Marquez. And Marco Bezzecchi rounded out the top 3 on his Aprilia.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how dominant those two were. Looking at the points gap at the midseason mark, you can see Marc Marquez just towering over the field with 344 points, Alex securely in second with 261, and defending champion Bagnaia trailing back at 197. These numbers show that once the Marquez brothers found their rhythm, a rhythm Alex truly unlocked back in Jerez, they were mathematically and practically unstoppable. So, the ultimate takeaway from our explainer today is this. The 2025 season is forever going to be remembered as the year the Marquez brothers completely conquered the sport. By achieving a 1-2 finish in the overall championship standings, Marc and Alex Marquez did something no other siblings have ever done in the entire history of Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Which leaves us with one massive, lingering thought. With the Marquez brothers achieving this level of ultimate, historic dominance, completely locking out the top 2 spots in the world, can any rider or any manufacturer step up to break their reign next season? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing those stats, and I'll catch you next time.